In this video, we will continue to learn the basics of 3ds Max, and we will create some parametric objects. We will modify them, transform them. So we're gonna go there in the Create tab. We're also gonna see how we can affect the pivot of our standard primitives. We're gonna experiment a little bit with the standard primitives and also some other objects. Now, we already saw how we can create like really simple things like boxes or plane, teapots, and text. Now, we also saw how we can access the template and how we can see them, how we can use them to study the viewports, the navigation system, and to start to understand how everything works here. So you need to experiment a little bit with the navigation system. That's gonna get you real fast, and that is something that you really need in order not to spend too much time in creating your scenes. So we saw some examples, but this is one of the underwater template scene here. We have lights, we have a lot of things that we're gonna see later. We're gonna continue from the most basic things, and then we're gonna increase the level of difficulty and the level of complexity. In each single video, we're gonna increase the level. So I'm gonna go back to the original startup, or I can open up a previous scene from here, but I want to have something standard like this. And we also saw how we can customize a little bit the viewports and how we can change, for example, the view cube. So by now you should know how to manage the views, and also here we can get back to the configuration and decide if you want to see or not the view cube. Right now it's too big, so I want to make it smaller again. So we saw how to manage and configure the viewports and how to set up our space. And now it's time to start working a little bit more with geometries and creating our scenes. So we're gonna go with the standard primitives and let's create a box again. Now we will get more into the parameters there that we have and also the units that we need to set up. So I'm gonna create a box, and you can see there that when I create the box, and the perspective is going to be placed on the floor, and that's going to happen also when I use the top view. And we are using a Cartesian system which is composed by three axes: x, epsilon, and z. Now x, epsilon represent the ground plane, so you can see there also, and the z axis usually represent the height, so it's the third dimension. So this is the three-dimensional world, and those are the absolute coordinates. But we can see we can then use absolute and local coordinates. Now, a lot of the software use this system, so you're gonna find that in other software as well. I'm gonna give a name to this object that I've created. I'm gonna call this floor, for example, and also I'm gonna give it a color. Now, this is important to find our objects when we have complex scenes. Now you can create a box using the box feature or the cube. So always check there in the parameters if you have some extra. So if I want to create a cube, it's more appropriate to select cube rather than box. If I need to create any other type of box, then I will go for box. So you can see here I'm creating a cube just by switching that radio button. And we can also see here that we have some length, width, and height. And again, everything I create has been placed on the floor so far, on that grid that we have on, which represent the x and epsilon. So when you work in perspective, when you work in the top view, you are working in the x epsilon plane. So you're gonna have that bidimensional plane where you will work. You can also insert by typing the x, epsilon, and z value. So you can insert a box either by clicking and dragging with the left mouse inside your scene, or if you want, you can just type there the values that you want. Now, since I'm creating a box here, sorry, a cube, I just need one dimension, one side. So it's going to be like 10. We don't really know what units we are using, so I'm just typing here numbers, but I don't really know what units I'm using. We will see that later. So when I say 10, 10, and 10 in the x epsilon z, I'm positioning that cube, which is also going to be big 10 units. I'm positioned that to that particular point, to that specific point in my Cartesian system. So I can be really precise here when I create objects, or I can just create them on the fly by clicking and dragging inside the scene. Now, every time you're going to work more precisely, you're going to take more time. So you always need to understand if it's better for you, for your project or whatever you are creating, to be quicker, to be faster, or to be more precise. So the more precise you will be, the less fast you will go. So try to understand if you need all that precision or not. So right now I'm creating a pillar. And again, to create pillars, I can use, again, the box, but just giving it different dimensions. And again, I can define a color. I always use color because even though they are not materials yet, I can see then the different objects displayed differently when I render and also in the preview. So it's going to give me it's going to help me to visualize my project in different colors. So that color perhaps could be steel. So I'm going to select like a dark gray to represent the steel. And later on, I will work with materials and I will create the steel. So we can set up here parameters like the length, the width, and the height for the pillar. So I can adjust the pillar anytime if I am still in the creation. So right now I'm still creating the object, so I can access the parameters. I can fix the parameters directly in the creation tab. When I exit the creation tab, then I will need to go in the modify tab. We're gonna see that later. Now, another important parameter is the segmentation. So how many segments do I want to insert inside my model? To see those segments, to see that structure of my object, I need to switch to edge faces or wireframe. Now with edge faces, I will still be able to see the object, its geometry, but I can also see the edges. And when I see the edges, then I can see the structure basically. So how many polygons are there? Now we already told that 3ds Max is a polygonal modeling tool, it's a polygonal modeling software. So everything is composed by polygons, which are essentially faces. So everything is going to be composed by a number of faces. Now you can customize many things in 3ds Max, like the units, but if you want to customize more, you can go here and go to the preference settings. And we already saw here that we can customize the number of levels of undo. We can customize the user interface many ways. We can change the menus, what's in the menus. We can change and customize the quad menu, which is the one that is going to appear when you right click. We can customize basically anything here, colors of the interface, menus. If you don't need some menu, you can just hide it. You can customize any color of how things are represented in the interface. Now I'm not going to customize anything. And if you want to reset, if you think you did something wrong, you can always reset all the settings. Now I'm not gonna customize anything so that everyone is gonna be on the same page. Now you always can also customize the hotkeys in the hotkeys editor. Now these are the shortcut keys. So you can see here the list of all the commands, all the actions that you can do in 3ds Max. And if there is a hotkey, a shortcut key, you're gonna find it next to that command. If there isn't any, you can apply it yourself. So let's say that I want to see the cube here. Well, actually we need to find a box rather than the cube. Now you'll see that it doesn't have any hotkey assigned. So if I want to assign a hotkey, I can type there, let's say, well, whatever letter you want. Let's say that I want to use this one here. And then I'm gonna apply it. So I will remove it probably from another command. So now if I type B, I've chosen the B, I'm gonna create boxes without actually getting into the command. Now you can go in the unit setup to set up the units. And this is really important if you want to work precisely and realistically. So if you want to do something really precise, you can activate there the unit setup and choose millimeters or centimeters, depending on how your scene will be big or small. And you have also US standard or international, you have lighting units. So you can set up this unit setup here, and then you can use it in your project. Okay, so you can see if I select that pillar again, I cannot see any parameter. But this is still parametric. We are still working with parametric objects. So to access those parameters, I cannot be in the creation tab, but I need to switch to the modify tab. So I can find there my box inside the list of parameters that I can use. And there I can find my parameters back. So if I see that, and also let me delete everything again so I can make things more precise. So when I now create a plane and I want to create, for example, a room, I can insert precisely the units that I want. And again, with the plane, I can create a rectangle or a simple square. So it's similar to the cube, but this time this is like 2 dimensions instead of 3. So I can set up the units there, and now I know precisely that I'm creating a plane with that exact size that I have inserted there. And I can give a color again to this and a name if I want. And again, I can change the length segments. Now you can see that once I click outside, I will not be able to access that object again. So to modify that object again, I need to go in the modify tab. So once you select anything else, you will lose the possibility to affect that in the creation tab, and you need to move into the other tab. Now let's see the cylinder here. You can create a cylinder from the edge or from the center, and this could be another type of column or pillar as well. And now I know the units, so I can type exactly the radius there of my pillar, so I can set up exact units for that pillar, and exact height, define the height segments. Now you will see later on that segments are really important when you work in 3D polymodeling. So now we're just gonna do some examples and some basic things. But look, if I change the number of sides, so the cylinder becomes a prism, an hexagon extrusion, or a triangle extrusion. So if I want to have a nice rounded column, a nice rounded pillar, I need to have a lot of segments there, a lot of sides, a lot of different faces. Now I can see everything smooth. Now I can see smooth thanks also to the smooth option there, which is kind of a fake effect that is showing me everything nice and smooth. So you can see here that if I decrease the number of sides, well, that's faceted there. It has faces. But if I apply the smooth, all those faces will be hidden. So this is why the smooth effect is a fake effect. If you print that cylinder with a 3D printer, you're gonna see the faces. You're not gonna see the smooth effect. But we're gonna get back to this later on as well. I'm gonna create another cylinder and gonna try with other parameters here, like for example the slice on. This is another important parameter which can help you to create a slice, which could be something for like a slice of pie or a slice of cheese or whatever. It could be the beginning of a particular and more detailed models. But this is just to show you that you need to go there and experiment with all parameters, because you never know what you find. Now I can clone this. So if I want to copy one object, I can right click and clone, and I can copy it by selecting copy, and just now I'm going to have an exact copy on top of that original one. I can see there in the left side, the outliner is going to show me all the objects. So sometimes when you select one object on top of the other, you're not gonna see you are one or the other. But let's change the slice again. There you go. So we can create like some graphic, some infographic here using the pies, the slices of a pie. And so I can change here some colors, do something pretty basic, but you get the idea. So always go there and experiment with parameters. You will find perhaps what you're looking for. So this is one example. So I have created the same cylinder, but by changing parameters, I've created this graphic representation of a pie with slices, which can be used for infographics or graphic design or whatever. So I'm gonna make some more examples here just by using standard primitives. We are in the standard primitive section. So in the creation tab, all these are primitives. So the box, the sphere, the cylinder. Now also the sphere is really easy to create and to use, and it's similar to the cylinder, but it's gonna have some extra parameters like hemisphere. So you can cut the sphere in vertical, or you can slice it again. So you still have the slice, but you also have this extra to create hemisphere, and you can cut it, you can squash it. There's like some different things, and again you can see the smooth effect that is gonna fake that smoothness of that object. So you have geosphere, you have sphere, they look pretty similar. You can see that when I create another sphere, it's gonna copy the latest settings. So it's gonna be a hemisphere again. So if I need to fix it, I need to change it. Now this could be used to create like a dome or like the top of a building, and again anything that you have in mind can be like transformed into something. So when you see an object in reality, try to figure out which primitive is that object, so you can start from that, and then later on we will see how we can also do polygonal modeling. Now you can see I'm moving the object around, and I can move it using the arrows. So I can move it only in one axis using the only one arrow, or we can click in the middle there of two arrows and it's gonna move it on a plane. So x epsilon or epsilon z or z epsilon. So depending on where you click, you can move the object, constrain the movement on that axis on a plane. And again, you can see there. Let's turn this back to a hemisphere. So this is the first of the transformation tools, the move tool, and you will find it at the top next to the selection. So you have move, rotate, and scale. And so using these tools, you can organize the objects in your scene, and you will find the move arrows in every view there. Now I'm going to create another primitive, a pyramid, so we can test other transformations. So again, I'm going to move it, click and drag, and then define the height. And then if you're not satisfied, go back and change the settings and the parameters. Now you can see that if I create the pyramid from the front view, it's going to be placed on another grid, on another construction plane. So depending on where I create my objects, those are going to go, are going to be placed on a particular plane, construction plane. So XO, epsilon, epsilon Z, and so on. Now you can also create your own construction planes. You can also use the autogrid function. We're going to see that later to, well, not be constrained only on the planes, but also you can place things anywhere. Now I'm going to create a torus, which is kind of a ring. So depending on the size of that radius, you can create like a donut or a ring, or I don't know, a piercing, or well, anything that has this shape. Just need to experiment here again. You can see I'm moving here using the other view, and I'm moving only constrained to the epsilon axis right now because I'm only using the epsilon. Now you can be really precise to place this on the floor. If you zoom a lot, you can place it exactly on the floor if you want, but that's going to cost you extra time. So always think if you want to work precise or if you want to work faster. Now again, I can change the size to have more smoothness. I can change so the sides here are in that direction, the segments are in the other direction. So this is a little bit more complex than the cylinder or the sphere. So you have two directions basically. So sides and segments. The more you increase those values, the more curviness, the more curvy will look your object. So polygons are really important when you need to do curves, curved surfaces, soft surfaces. Okay, if you lose the view there, you can always find it. So if you orbit on a 2D view, you can go back by selecting the views that you want in the view menu. And again, we have the slice here. So we can try to represent something here with the slice. And let's see something else, like well, we saw the teapot and the text plus. So we see the most important ones. I'm gonna show you just a couple of extras. So cone, it's another really simple shape, and the tube is kind of a cylinder which has a hole inside, so it's gonna be like a pipe or a tube. So actually this is one of my favorite because I can create a lot of things with this. So just by experimenting, I found out that I can create, I don't know, bracelet or something more similar to an arc or for architecture. So you really, by experimenting, you can then have many ideas. So if I create the tube in this other view here, and I'm trying to place that where my pillar is. So I want to create an arc. So I'm gonna place it there. I'm using the top view again. I don't want to be extremely precise so that I can work pretty fast and create my scene pretty fast. So that's my arc. Well, it's not yet an arc. It's still a tube. So I'm also going to clone this cylinder here and to make the other pillar. There you go. So you can see I can be more precise if I zoom a little bit. So I can select and transform by moving the arc a little bit more, and then you can slice here, and this is not going to be a circle anymore, it's going to be an arc right there. So you can see how with the same exact object we can create so many different effects, so many versions of the arc. So again, with your idea that you have in mind, try to get there with the primitive that you think is the nearest. So now let's go here in the file menu, and of course you can import also stuff from other videos. Now I want to merge. Now when I import formats that are not from 3ds Max, I need to import. When I have a 3ds Max file that I want to join here, that I want to unite, I can select merge and then select, for example, the text that we created in another video. Now here's the list of things inside this scene that I'm trying to merge, but I only have the text in here. So this is gonna be easier. I'm just gonna select the text and I'm going to import it or merge it actually. When you have complex scene there, you have filters, you can select what you want to import or not. Now I have imported the text, is right there, but I cannot see it. So to find it real quick, I can go down there and do zoom, extend, select it. And I can see that it's really, really small. It's on the floor, almost invisible. So I can now move it, rotate it, and scale it. So move, rotate, and scale. Transformation are always important and always helpful. So I'm going to move it. I will rotate it, and you can see here I can rotate around the x, the epsilon, and z axis again. So depending on what circle I pick there from the gizmo, it's gonna make a different rotation. And I can also use the values down there. So I can insert an exact parameter either for my movement or for my rotation or for my scale. So if I type 90, it's gonna rotate it exactly 90 degrees around whatever axis I want to rotate it. And now I can move it precisely. So I can place here an exact value like 1 meter, 2 meters, whatever. And then I can place it precisely on a particular height. So again, move, rotate. You can use absolute values, you can use local values. When you use absolute values, they're gonna use the world units. When you use relative or local, they're gonna use, you can see everything is set to 0 again, so they're gonna use the local value at the moment, so where the object is at the moment, not in relation to the world. So if I type the exact value, is gonna add it to the other one. But if I switch to world, I can see that that value in the world is actually 8 meters in this case. So if I type 400 in the absolute, it's always going to be in the 400z. If I do it with the relative, it's going to always add 400 to the latest value. And now let's scale the other transformation. So I can scale 1D, I can scale 2D, and I can scale 3D, depending again on where I pick. So if I pick just one axis, it's going to scale just one dimension. If I select two axes with the triangle in the middle, it's going to do it 2 dimension. To scale it proportional, you need to scale it from every axis. And I'm going to place it right there. So I'm going to adjust here the other objects a little bit. That's my text bar there. Maybe I want it bigger so I can scale it more. And so I'm going to select the scale to scale it uniformly. You can see also there, you can change the scale. So to make it uniform or to make it select and squash. So these are like different types of scales, so of scaling. And also select and place is a really helpful tool. So when you want to place something on a surface, so you don't want to just use the construction grids, you can click there and you can see it's gonna be placed on the surface that you're gonna touch with your mouse. So I'm just clicking and dragging, and that object is gonna be placed exactly on that surface that I'm gonna touch with the mouse. So that's another really important feature right there. And here we can change again the transformations from local to world to parent, depending on what I need to do. So we're gonna use this perhaps later, but mostly you wanna use world and local. So you can see now that, let's for example take that pyramid. If I move it, you can see how the axes are placed right now. So that Z is pointing up. So this is world, or actually this is from the view. If I change it to the world, it's gonna be the same. If I make it local, it's gonna change the orientation of the various axes. So this is a way we can work better with an object that we have rotated. So we can see everything aligned to that object. So again, I'm gonna create a box here. I want to create like a door for that I want to place there. So this is gonna be like a door panel. But if I rotate it, if I use the rotate tool around the Z axis, well, it doesn't rotate like an actual door. So there is another really important tool you need to know when you work with transformation, and that is the pivot. Now to access the pivot, we need to go to the hierarchy panel there in the right, And there it is. So we are already in the pivot section. So when we click on affect pivot and we work with the move, rotate, and scale, we are only affecting the pivot. So I'm gonna move the pivot where it's supposed to be for a door panel. So I'm gonna move it right there. I can help myself also with the other views. I can center to object, I can align it to object, I can do some automatic operations there, but in this case I need to place it manually in the position where I want to be the pivot for this door. So it's gonna be somewhere around there. Now you can be more or less precise again, faster or slower. So remember to turn off affect pivot when you're finished, and then you can rotate, and now it's gonna look good. So it's looking like it's supposed to be. It's supposed to rotate around pivot fixed on that wall or pillar. So the pivot is really important to affect all of the transformations that we saw: the move, the rotate, and the scale. And again, these are just basic operations, but in the other videos we're going to see more complex things. So we are just getting started. We are seeing the most simple things that we can do in 3ds Max. Now you can also look for the 3D Studio Max sample files, which are a good resource, especially when you are a beginner, when you are beginning. If you want to see how a scene has been made, you can go here in this page and you can see there is download page here, so you can click and download these Autodesk 3ds Max sample files, and you will find files from previous versions as well, like 2015, 2017, 2018, and 2020, and so on. So you have really a lot of resources here, a lot of assets that you can use to begin to study and to experiment more with 3ds Max. So I definitely suggest you do this. You can see it's going to take a little bit of time because these are really complex scenes. We are just creating our first complex scenes right here. So I think it's good if we give a look also to those samples later on. So this is what I'm gonna do here, and now I want to go to 5 here and merge again. So you can also define here the quick access. We use the quick access. You can see here I've selected my sample file also in the quick access, and now I'm gonna get some of these scenes here in the sample files. Let's go to the rendering section. Let's open up this one here. So you can see I'm merging here, and I can bring in materials, I can bring in lights, I can bring in anything that I want from these samples to use it in my scene. So again, it's a really interesting resource that we can use when we are starting to work with 3ds Max. Also here we have some characters. Let's add a character here right away just to make an example. Let's see this one here. So this could be done with polygon modeling and also with sculpting and painting. We're gonna see this later. So again, I will select what I need. I can also choose not to import lights, so I can turn off lights and just import geometries. Just say OK. Don't worry about obsolete data, say OK, and that's the model right there. So I've just merged a file from these libraries of examples that I can now use in my scene. So this is how quickly it is to assembly 3ds Max scenes. And this will be all for this lesson. See you in the next video.